Okay, so for yin today, have all your props nearby, whatever you're working with. And if you don't have anything, we'll keep it simple. So, you can just uh, improvise. So come on down on, let's start with the bolster and a strap. So get your bolster, have that nearby. If you don't have a bolster, fold a few folded towels could work. Have them folded tight. You're going to set it off to the side. We'll start just on our back, but you want the bolster and the strap within reach when you come down onto your back. So coming down onto your back, let's bring the soles of the feet wide to the outer edges of the mat and bring the knees to touch. So knocking the knees together, arms down by the sides, close the eyes. Let's just take a moment to settle into our practice onto our mat, this quality time with ourselves. Take a deep breath in through the nose, back out through the mouth. Inhale in through the nose, back out through the mouth. Last cleansing breath. Inhale in through the nose, back out through the mouth. This time in through the nose and back out through the nose. Keep going with this breath. Arms can either be down by the sides or you could place the hands on the body. See which one feels better right now. Let's blink open the eyes, heel toe the feet to hip width distance. So take the bolster, you'll bring it the wide way underneath the hips. So press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide the bolster underneath the hips and set the hips down onto the bolster. Strap still within reach, not going to use it just yet, but it's supported bridge with the bolster underneath the hips. We're starting here. You want to make sure the hips are somewhat near the center of the bolster, so you have plenty of space on each side of it. That's not being used at the moment. And then hug the right knee in toward the chest. Take your strap, loop the sole of the right foot into the strap. Extend the right leg up. And you're grabbing both ends of the strap with each hand. Sometimes I'll see people grab it with one hand. See if you can do it with both hands. The other options with the arms are slide the elbows all the way back so they're resting on the mat, or you could choke up on the strap if that feels like it's a good idea. You could have a bend in the knee if you'd like, just listening to the backside of your right leg. Toes on the right foot could come down toward the face, and you'll start to feel some length in the calf when you make that adjustment. And if you'd like, you can keep the sole of the left foot on the mat where it is, or you could extend that left leg forward. Maybe try it, see how it feels. If you feel like you're struggling at all, just bring the left foot back to the mat. It might just be too soon, which is fine. Give yourself more time. And sometimes we'll try things, options, and it feels good at first, but then over time it starts to become a little too deep. That you can just go back. You can always go back to one step before where we were. And you'll grab both ends of the strap with the right hand. This time, bring the hand up close to the foot so the arm is straight. So we don't want to bend in the elbow and the hand to be way back. Crawl that hand way up toward the foot, just see where it naturally goes. And it kind of depends on where the leg is. Left arm comes out to the side. Keep the left hip on the mat. Look at the right toes. Turn the right toes out to the right. Try to keep the arms straight. It can always come in a little bit if you want to. The right leg comes out to the right really slow. So press out through the right foot to keep the leg firm, just to get yourself set up. So we're on the bolster, so that right edge of the bolster can catch the leg for more support. Could always use a block too if it's too much, but try to keep the arms straight. It's closer to the foot, so that's the only way to keep the length there. Try not to lift the left hip up or the left shoulder up. So you're reaching away with the left side of the body as the right leg goes to the right. And what that does, so if you can keep the left hip and the left shoulder down, you start to get some space between the hip bones, top of the pelvis, which can feel really nice. And again, that left foot can always come to the mat. You can keep the leg bent. And while you're keeping the right arm straight, it's more just to keep the strap taut. So you don't want it to be loose. So if you need a visual, I'm your visual, but it's also, I'm just an idea. So you have to figure out how it lands in your body. And you'll start to press out through both feet. So you firm up the legs again. Try to keep that right arm and right leg straight as you bring it back up to center. Always going slow, but you want some energy in the leg for that transition. And then grab both ends of the strap with two hands. Bring the left foot into the strap and set the right foot down onto the mat. And we're coming into that first stretch that we started with on the right side, bringing it over to the left leg. So here's what you can choose. Do you want to choke up on the strap, reaching the hands up toward the foot, or would you rather slide the hands all the way back so that the upper arms rest on the mat. The option with both of these, you can keep the strap tight both with both choices. So see which one feels a little better. Maybe play with the bend in the left knee. See where you get a good stretch. And left toes come down toward the face. Right foot can stay where it is. You could also extend the right leg forward. Check that out. Right leg's a little bit more open, right? Because it's already gone through both poses. So it could be easier on this side. You're just letting the right heel rest on the mat if the leg's extended. Left leg still coming in toward the body with minimal effort. So not as deep as you can go. And this is a nice way to open up the legs, reverse the blood flow in the legs, which helps us lower cortisol. It also helps balance out our energy. So if you're coming into this feeling a little tired or sluggish, it'll bring you back to a more balanced state. And if you're coming into this with a little too much energy, excitement, it can help calm you down. Grab both ends of the strap with the left hand. Bring the right arm out to the side. Keep that right hip, right shoulder on the mat. Choke up on the strap. So reaching up toward the foot, keeping the arm long. Turn the left toes out to the left. And then slowly pressing out through both feet. Keep the legs firm. Start to open the left leg out to the left. Go real slow. There's no reason to swing into it. If you go slow and keep it controlled, you can feel where you should stop, where the hip opening starts to happen, where the leg opening starts to happen. And then once you find your place, stay there. Try to keep that right shoulder, right hip on the mat so you get that spreading across the top of the hips. And if you need more support underneath that left leg, you feel free to wedge whatever you have underneath there. So it could be a block, blankets, pillow, another bolster if you have one, whatever it is. You'll start to press out through both legs. So you feel the muscles in the legs start to engage. Slowly keeping the leg and the arm straight. Bring the left leg back up to center. Take your time. Set the strap off to the side. Set the left foot down onto the mat and the right foot down onto the mat. And just rest here. Arms can be down by the sides. So you're in a light back bend. You have the bolster elevating the hips. Chest is a little bit lifted. We could take this a little bit further. So you could extend both legs out in front of you. Also, the legs are open now. Maybe you lift the shoulders up or the chest up to get the shoulder blades underneath you. You can close the eyes and just start to rest here. Kind of nice to come into this after the legs are open because then it just feels so good to have them out in front of you. If for some reason it doesn't, soles of the feet on the mat, keep the knees bent. And let's start to walk the feet back in, soles of the feet to the mat. Press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide the bolster out from underneath you, set the hips back down onto the mat. So you were there for a long time, several minutes. You'll feel a big difference with the hips coming back down. It never feels like you're up that high. It's always amazing to me when you remove the prop from underneath the hips, the difference that you feel. So roll over to your right side, use the left hand to bring yourself up, and then take the bolster, bring it back behind you the wide way. Make sure there's plenty of room on your mat ahead of the bolster because we want your hand to land on something. You also may want a blanket nearby for your head. Start without it, and then we'll see what happens. You might not need it. So come to seated facing away from the bolster, hips and feet down on the mat. And then what you're going to do is lie back onto the bolster. You want the upper back to be on the bolster. Maybe the shoulders come down to the mat. Mine don't quite touch, but they're not on the bolster. Maybe just the bottom tips of my shoulder blades are on the bolster. Arms can reach out like in a T shape. You could also cactus the arms. So keep the soles of the feet on the mat. Hips are on the mat, not on the bolster. And what you might find here is the back of the neck might not have enough length. And that's when you can take a blanket, just a little bit of padding. And if you put it underneath the head and you feel like you get way more length in the back of the neck, then keep the blanket there. So that's a great way to make that adjustment when you can't see yourself. And then feet can stay down on the mat. That's kind of a nice way to come into this. If you feel like you want more, legs out in front of you, just extended, relaxed, is deeper. So if that's a good option, stay there. You know what to do. If it's not, feet to the mat. So another back bend, we just move the bolster up the spine for this one. If you have the legs extended out in front of you, start to find some movement in the feet. Walk the feet back in, bending the knees. Then roll over to your right side. Slide the bolster out from underneath you. Come on onto your back again. So just lie flat on your back. If you have something underneath the head, you can set that off to the side. Just feeling the spine start to settle. Feel the difference with what that particular back bend did versus the other one. Walk the feet in, soles of the feet to the mat, roll over to the right, use the hands to bring yourself up to seated. So you're keeping the knees pointing in the same direction, legs are bent. Let's take the bolster, bring it back behind you, and you want the bolster to be the long way. And then you'll bring the hands to each side of the bolster. So once you get there, you could put some padding too between the knees if you want to put a blanket or something. So lengthen the heart forward, lengthening the torso over the bolster. So you're lying down on it. And then once you get to a place where the head wants to rest, maybe turn the head to the right. See what that feels like. If you rest the left side of the head down onto the bolster, if it's too much, go the other way. Or if it builds over time, you can always switch the direction of the head. So now we're coming into our twist, our spinal twist. See if you can just let yourself be heavy on the bolster. You don't really need to do any work here. The bolster's doing it for you. It's holding you in place. You'll start to lift the head, turn it so that it's going toward the left. So the right side of the head's on the bolster. If you're already there, stay there. You're just finding a release on the neck. Feeling the twist start to go away from the cervical spine. And start to walk the hands in so they're on the mat. Press yourself up and away from the bolster. Turn around so you're seated away from the bolster. Just find a cross-legged seat or some comfortable seat. But if you can do the cross-legged seat, do that. Hands to the knees, and we'll just do some cat-cow seated. So on the exhale, round the spine, chin goes down toward the chest. And on the inhale, lift the heart up. Lift the gaze up. Eyes can be closed though. And you'll just go back and forth with your own breath. Seated cat cow. Using this movement in the spine as a counter before we twist over to the other side. Finish the cycle that you're on. Come back to seated. Let's bring the soles of the feet to the mat. Now knees will go over to the left. So you'll shift onto the side of the left hip, hands on each side of the bolster. Knees are still bent, however you're comfortable. Start to lie down onto the bolster. Here's where you may consider turning the head to the left, resting the right side of the head on the bolster. Find a comfortable place for the arms. Start to settle in. And then see where you can let go once you're in the twist. Trying not to drive yourself into the twist, just be in the twist. If you have your head turned all the way around into the twist, lift it, turn it so that the nose and the knees are going in the same direction. Just let the neck rest. Start to walk the hands in, press yourself up and away from the bolster. Turn yourself around so you're seated away from the bolster. Cross-legged seat, other shin in front. Sitting up tall, hands can be on the knees. Some cat cows again. Maybe the eyes are closed. Go slow, keep the breath long. Inhaling to lift, exhaling to round. One more cycle, inhale and exhale. And you'll come back to a neutral spine. So we'll come forward to hands and knees. Once you come forward to hands and knees, bring the knees all the way together. Tops of the feet are down on the mat, and the feet are separated a little wider than hip width distance. So you could try with the bolster, although that might be a little bit low. You could try a block or two between the ankles. If you do 2 blocks, you can go lowest height. And if you're not sure what we're doing, just start with the 2 blocks. You can always go lower. So take the hands, move the calf muscle out of the way, sit up onto the blocks. And if you feel like your knees would give you more space to come down a little lower, then maybe you shift forward, set 1 block off to the side, and you could put the bottom block on the medium height. That's a good next step. Hips have to be even on something. So what's nice about starting higher is you can feel what that feels like and then get adjusted from there. If that's still too high, see what it's like to go to the block on the lowest height. maybe you stay there. And if you're feeling like maybe you could go a little bit lower, the bolster could be a great option. Come forward, set the block off to the side, slide the bolster underneath the hips. And that's almost to the mat, because if your bolster has a little bit of give to it, you can press down into it and stay there. So this is saddle pose. It's a nice opening for the quads, the lower body. Ideally, the knees are touching. They don't have to be touching, but you want them as close together as you can get them. So knees together, feet a little bit wider, tops of the feet are on the mat. Outer ankles are hugging in a little bit, so they're not bowing out. Hands can be down on the thighs, chest can be lifted, rise up through the crown of the head. And you start to settle in to the shape here. And then, like with most of the other poses that we're doing, I'll give you some options to consider taking it a little bit further if you want to. So work with whatever you have going on. Maybe if you want to go further, start to walk the hands back behind you, leaning the chest back, coming into a reclined version of saddle. So tail's pointing forward toward the knees, so you keep that space in the lower back. If the tail's going down, straight down, you'll take away space in the lower back, and it can bring some tenderness there. And if it's not, if the lower back just isn't having it, no matter which way you have the hips, then come back up. It's not worth it. So you could be back on the hands. You could come down onto the forearms. Some people can easily get there. This is as far as I'm going today. I'm taking a lower version with my hips, and so I'm not able to go back as far. And truthfully, this pose has always been a struggle for me and my anatomy. This might not be for you, so don't let me stop you. Some people can lie all the way back on the floor. Hips can come all the way down to the mat. If you don't have anything underneath the hips and your hips are easily touching the floor, you can probably lie all the way back onto your back. But you don't want to do that if you have the hips propped up, unless they're real close to the floor. The tops of the feet, the ankles start to get a nice opening with this shape. So do the knees, hips. You're all the way down onto your back. Bring your hands and your forearms down to the mat. Press yourself up, lifting the head and the chest. And then come up onto the hands. If you're leaning back onto the hands, start to walk the hands forward, coming back up to seated, head right over the hips. And then we'll all come forward to tabletop. If you have something underneath the hips, set it off to the side so it's out of the way. Once you get to tabletop, make sure the knees are back to hip width distance apart. Step the right toes back behind you and just circle the right heel over the ball of the foot. That'll be a nice way to open up the leg after having it bent. Switch the direction of your circles, go the other way with the heel. Right knee comes to the mat, left toes step back behind you. Same thing, other side, circle the heel around the ball of the foot, keep the leg long. Switch the direction, go the other way. Left knee comes to the mat, come to seated. So feet come to one side, extend the legs out in front of you. So we'll start with the hips down on the mat. Unless you know you're working with something in the lower body, you could sit up on a block. And at any point, coming up onto a block could be a good idea. So let's bring the left foot to the mat. Step the left foot over the right leg. Grab onto the outer left ankle bone. Bring the foot over to the side. So half shoelace, you're trying to work towards stacked knees. Doesn't have to be perfect, just saying that so you know where to put the legs. So maybe this is good and you stay here. Bottom leg can stay extended. If you're already struggling, pop yourself up onto a block and lift the hips up. Next step, maybe shift over to the right foot or right hip, bend the right leg, and now see about stacking the knees. Hips need to be even underneath you. So that left hip has to be even on the mat, just like the right hip. Feet could be in, they could be out. Find a comfortable place. Sit up tall and then take an inhale. On the exhale, start to lean forward. So now you're putting some weight on the hip opening. It's up to you how much weight you put on the hip opening. If it feels good, go as deep as you want. Maybe you hook the chin over the top knee. You could even use blocks here too. So you could stack the blocks so you can rest the forehead down on something. We know that if we can touch down on that spot that the forehead touches down for child's pose, it calms the body down, which is always great for a hip opening. It's a tight area of the body. We'll start to lift the head back up, setting any blocks or props off to the side. Bring the hands back behind you, lean back, extend the bottom leg, then the top leg. Bring the feet out wide to the outer edges of the mat and take windshield wipers. So bringing the knees side to side. And you'll come back to legs out in front of you, sitting up tall. This time, let's bring the sole of the right foot to the mat. Step the right foot over the left leg. Grab onto the outer right ankle bone. Bring the foot off to the side. This side might be different. It's not a big deal if it is. Stay here in half shoelace or lean over to the left. See if you can bend the bottom leg, working towards stacked knees. Both hips have to be down even on something. If it's not happening, either extend the bottom leg or prop yourself up on something underneath the hips. Sit up tall, take an inhale. On the exhale, start to fold forward, come into shoelace pose, some version of it on this side. Maybe blocks underneath the head if you like that. We'll start to bring the head back up, set any props off to the side, bring the hands back behind you, lean back, extend the bottom leg, then the top leg. Take your windshield wipers going side to side, feet wide. Then you'll come back to seated, have your strap nearby. So legs out in front of you. Take the strap, loop the soles of the feet, and then sit up tall. So again, you want the strap to be tight. You can place the strap at the top of the arch, just below the ball of the foot, and start to hinge forward. So it's a seated forward fold, but you're using the strap. You might need to crawl the hands forward. In fact, you can just move the hands up toward the feet and start to fold down over the legs. So keep the strap tight, let the head and the neck go. But when you keep that engagement with the feet and the strap, it's kind of a nice way to push the feet into something, but also pull them in toward the body at the same time. Could be a little deeper of an opening in your seated forward fold, caterpillar. And this is a great way for this shape if forward folds are a struggle, or, you know, if you have a harder time reaching your feet when you fold over the legs. And if you can easily reach the feet, still feels good to hang on to the strap instead every once in a while. We'll start to make our way back up to seated. You can set the strap off to the side and we'll start to set up for Shavasana. So let's use the bolster. Take that, bend the knees, put the bolster underneath the knees. Then you might need to scoot yourself forward a little bit. Come on down onto your back. Soles of the feet are still on the mat. Head can be down on the mat. Maybe you lift the hips up, get those back down, extend the legs out in front of you, and then open up the feet a little bit. Kick anything else that's in the way out of the way so you're not touching anything. Arms come down by the sides, palms face up. Close the eyes. Start to settle into your final relaxation pose, Shavasana. Or to wiggle your fingers and your toes, figuring out where they are. Open up the eyes, coming back into your space. Bring the hands onto the torso, left hand on the heart, right hand on the belly. Sending some love back into your own body. Soles of the feet come to the mat, bending the knees. And then roll over to one side, maybe the right side. You could shift the bolster off to the side. Cradle the head and the arm if that's comfortable. Using the hands, bring yourself up to a comfortable seat on your mat. To close your practice, sitting up tall, coming back into the ceremony of things. Bring the hands together, bow the head, honor and acknowledge your heart and spirit, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thanks so much for joining. So that was a lot of work on the legs today. Hopefully, if you came in with a sore body, you're feeling a difference. And if you weren't sore, just feeling like they're more awake and available to you. All right. See you next time.